Colt Maddox had $37 to his name when he rode into Silverton, and he planned to spend exactly one of them. The horse beneath him, a gray gelding with a temperament meaner than most outlaws, picked its way through frozen mud and half-melted snow. January in the San Juans didn't forgive mistakes. The cold here didn't creep. It attacked. Colt had seen men lose fingers to frostbite in less than an hour, watched whole camps go silent overnight when the wind turned vicious. He'd been riding for 6 weeks. Before that, 3 months working a ranch outside Durango that went belly up when the owner drank himself into an early grave. Before that, another ranch, another failure. Colt was 31 years old and owned nothing except the clothes on his back, a Colt peacemaker that had saved his life twice, and a growing certainty that drifting would kill him eventually. Not from bullets, from emptiness. Silverton hunched in the valley like something trying to hide from the mountains. Wooden buildings crowded together, smoke pouring from crooked chimneys. The main street was a churned-up mess of wagon ruts and horse shit, frozen into jagged ridges. Men moved quickly between doorways, shoulders hunched, hats pulled low. Nobody lingered. The kind of cold that settled into this town made people mean. Colt tied his horse outside a saloon called the Broken Spoke and stepped inside. The warmth hit him first, thick and stale, smelling of tobacco, wet wool, and something burnt. A dozen men clustered around tables, playing cards or nursing drinks. A couple of them glanced up when he entered, assessed him in half a second, then went back to their business. Colt had that effect. He didn't look like trouble exactly. He looked like someone who wouldn't start trouble, but wouldn't back down from it either. The bartender was a heavy man with a scar bisecting his left eyebrow. He wiped down the bar with a rag that had probably never been clean. "Whiskey," Colt said. The bartender poured without speaking. Colt laid 2 bits on the counter. He drank slowly, letting the burn settle in his chest. Around him, conversations hummed. Complaints about the cold, speculation about silver prices, crude jokes about a woman named Sal who worked at the bathhouse. Colt listened without appearing to. After his second drink, he leaned forward slightly. "Heard there's land for sale around here." The bartender snorted. "You got money?" "Some." "Then you heard wrong. Anything worth buying got bought years ago. Rest is either claimed or cursed." Colt didn't react. "Cursed how?" The bartender shrugged. "Blackpine Ridge, cabin up there, been empty 3 years. Owner died bad. His wife went crazy, wandered off into the snow. Couple of prospectors tried to stake it after that. One broke his leg so bad the bone came through. Other one just disappeared. Now nobody'll touch it." "Why not?" "Because people ain't stupid." Colt took another drink. "Who owns it now?" "Town does. Sheriff's got the deed in his office, I reckon." "Why? You interested in freezing to death on a mountain nobody wants?" "Maybe." The bartender laughed, a short, ugly sound. "Then you're dumber than you look." Colt finished his drink and walked out. The sheriff's office sat at the end of the main street, a squat building with barred windows. Inside, a wood stove radiated heat that barely reached the corners. Behind a cluttered desk sat a man in his 50s, broad-shouldered and thick-necked, with a face that looked like it had been carved with a dull axe. His badge caught the lamplight. Sheriff Dale Harkin. Colt had known men like him before, the kind who wore authority like a weapon and mistook cruelty for strength. "Help you?" Harkin didn't look up from the paper he was reading. "Heard you've got land for sale." That got his attention. Harkin set the paper down and studied Colt with pale eyes. "You heard wrong." "Blackpine Ridge." Harkin's expression shifted. Not quite a smile, but close. "That ain't for sale." "Bartender said the town owns it." "Town does." "Don't mean it's for sale." Colt held his gaze. "Everything's for sale." Harkin leaned back in his chair, fingers drumming on the desk. "You got a death wish, son?" "Got $1." The drumming stopped. Harkin studied him for a long moment, then barked out a laugh. $1. "That's right. For cursed land nobody wants." "For land," Colt said. "Don't care what people call it." Harkin's smile widened, but it didn't reach his eyes. Something calculating moved behind them. "You know what's up there?" "Cabin. Some trees, rock. Dead man's cabin. Dead woman's ghost, if you believe the stories. And enough bad luck to bury 10 men." Colt said nothing. Harkin pulled open a drawer, rummaged through it, and withdrew a yellow deed. He slapped it on the desk. "This is legal transfer of property. You sign this, that land's yours. But don't come crying to me when winter eats you alive." "I won't." Harkin pushed the paper forward along with a pen. $1. Colt laid the coin on the desk. It clicked against the wood, a sound smaller than it should have been. He signed his name in careful, blocky letters. Harkin snatched up the coin and leaned back, grinning now. "Pleasure doing business, Mr. Maddox. Hope you last longer than the others." Colt folded the deed and tucked it into his coat. He turned to leave. "One more thing," Harkin said. Colt paused. "You see anything unusual up there? Anyone who shouldn't be there? You come tell me. Understand? Why would anyone be up there?" Harkin's grin faded. "Just do it." Colt walked out without answering. The ridge sat 4 miles outside town, accessible only by a trail that switchbacked up the mountainside through stands of black pine and aspen. Snow lay thick between the trees, untouched except for animal tracks. The air thinned as Colt climbed, each breath burning colder. His horse didn't like it. The gelding balked twice, ears pinned back, but Colt urged him forward. They'd been through worse. The cabin appeared suddenly, hunched against the slope like something trying not to be seen. It was small, maybe 20 feet on a side, built from rough-cut logs chinked with mud and moss. The roof sagged in the middle. One window was boarded over. The other was dark. Colt dismounted and tied the horse to a tree. He stood for a moment, studying the place. It didn't feel cursed. It felt abandoned. He approached slowly, boots crunching in the snow. The door hung crooked on leather hinges, gap-toothed and splintered. He pushed it open. Darkness swallowed the interior. Colt's hand moved instinctively to his revolver as his eyes adjusted. The cabin was a single room. A stone fireplace dominated one wall, cold and black. A rough table sat in the center, one leg shorter than the others. In the corner, a pile of rags that might have been a bed. The air smelled of rot and mouse shit, empty. Colt stepped inside, floorboards groaning under his weight. He moved to the fireplace, crouched, examined the ashes. Old, months, maybe years. He straightened and heard breathing, not his own. Colt went still. His hand closed around the revolver grip. He turned slowly. In the far corner behind the table, something moved in the shadows. "Don't," a voice said, female, raw. "Don't come closer." Colt froze. The voice came again, stronger now. "I got a gun." "So do I," Colt said quietly. Silence. Then, from the darkness, "This is my place. You got no right." "Got a deed says different." A pause. "You're lying." "No, ma'am." The shadow shifted. Colt's eyes had adjusted enough now to make out a shape. Someone crouched low, pressed against the wall. He could see the outline of a rifle barrel. "Bought it from the sheriff," Colt continued, keeping his voice level. $1. It's legal." "Harkin sold you this land." "That's right." A sound that might have been a laugh, bitter, broken. "Then he sold you nothing. This land's mine." "You got a deed?" "I got something better. I got right." Colt studied the shape in the corner. Whoever she was terrified. He could hear it in her breathing, quick and shallow. But she wasn't backing down. "I'm going to light a lantern," he said. "Nice and slow. That all right?" No answer. Colt moved carefully to the table where he'd seen the stub of a candle. He pulled a match from his pocket, struck it against his belt. The flame flared, casting wild shadows across the walls. And there she was, a woman. Heavy set, maybe 30 years old, with dark hair tangled around a face streaked with dirt and fear. Her dress was torn, patched with cloth that didn't match. Her hands gripped an old Sharps rifle, the kind that could drop a buffalo at 200 yards. But those hands were shaking. Colt lit the candle. The room settled into dim, flickering light. "I'm Colt Maddox," he said, "and I don't want trouble." The woman didn't lower the rifle. "Then you should have stayed in town." "Can't do that." "Why not?" "Because I bought this land, and I mean to keep it." Her eyes narrowed. They were dark, he saw now, almost black, and burning with something, anger, maybe, or desperation. "You know who I am?" she asked. "No, ma'am." "Eliza Boone." She said it like it should mean something. Colt shook his head. Don't know that name? For the first time, something flickered across her face. Surprise, maybe. You're not from Silverton. Just got here today. Eliza's grip on the rifle loosened slightly. Then you don't know. Know what? She stared at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she lowered the rifle. Not all the way, just enough. This land belonged to my father, she said. Samuel Boone. He worked it for 15 years, found silver in the creek bed 3 years back. Not much, but enough. Enough to matter. Colt listened. He died that winter. Pneumonia. My mother, she couldn't take it. Walked out into a storm one night, never came back. Eliza's voice cracked. Town said I couldn't inherit. Said a woman can't hold a claim alone. Said I was too... She stopped. Too what? Doesn't matter. They took it. Sheriff and his friends. Drew up papers, forged signatures. Said my father owed debts he never owed. Kicked me out. So you came back. So I stayed. Her eyes blazed. I never left. Been hiding here 3 years, keeping it alive. Keeping it mine. Colt processed that. And Harkin doesn't know. He knows. He just thinks nobody'll believe me. Thinks I'm crazy. Thinks... She bit off the words. Thinks what? Eliza's jaw tightened. Thinks nobody listens to women like me. Colt understood then. The way she said it. The weight behind those words. Well, he said slowly, I paid for this land. Got the deed to prove it. That deed's worthless. It was stolen. Maybe, but it's legal. Eliza raised the rifle again. Then we got a problem. Colt met her eyes. We do. They stood like that for a long moment. Two people who'd been pushed too far, too often, holding their ground in a frozen cabin on a mountain nobody wanted. Finally, Colt spoke. You eaten today? Eliza blinked. What? Food. You got any? She stared at him like he'd started speaking another language. Why? Because I got some jerky in my saddlebag, and it's cold as hell in here. Figure we could at least talk this through without freezing. Eliza didn't move. Colt sighed. I'm not here to hurt you, Miss Boone. I'm here because I got nowhere else to go. Same as you, I reckon. It's not the same. Maybe not. But standing here pointing guns at each other won't solve it. Slowly, so slowly, Eliza lowered the rifle. Colt nodded. I'm going to step outside, get my gear. That all right? Eliza didn't answer. But she didn't raise the rifle again either. Colt walked out into the cold. He brought in his saddlebags, a bedroll, and enough firewood to last the night. Eliza watched from the corner, rifle across her lap, as he built a fire in the hearth. The wood was damp and fought him, spitting smoke before finally catching. Warmth crept into the room. Colt laid out the jerky on the table along with a tin of beans and half a loaf of bread he'd bought in town. Not much, he said, but it's something. Eliza stared at the food like it might disappear. Go ahead, Colt said. She didn't move. He sat down, tore off a piece of jerky, and started eating. After a moment, Eliza reached out slowly and took a piece of bread. She ate it in small, careful bites, like someone who'd learned not to waste anything. They ate in silence. When the food was gone, Colt leaned back against the wall. How long you been up here alone? Eliza didn't answer right away. Then, 3 years, give or take. Town doesn't come looking? They used to. First year they'd send men up. Try to scare me off. I'd hide in the woods, wait 'em out. After a while they stopped coming. Think they figured winter would do their work for them. But it didn't. No, Colt studied her. He was tougher than she looked. Had to be, to survive 3 winters alone in a place like this. What do you do for food? He asked. Trap. Fish when the creek's not frozen. Got a root cellar out back with what's left of my father's stores. It's enough. Barely. She shot him a look. I'm still here, aren't I? You are. Eliza pulled her knees up, wrapping her arms around them. The rifle lay within reach. So what now? You gonna drag me down the mountain? Turn me over to Harkin? No. Why not? You got the law on your side. Law and right aren't always the same thing. Eliza's eyes narrowed. You believe me? Don't know yet, but I believe you've been here 3 years, and I believe Harkin sold me land he knew someone was living on. He's a bastard. Yeah. The fire crackled. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the boarded window. I got a proposition, Colt said. Eliza tensed. I'm not that. Colt held up a hand. I need a place to stay. You need help holding this land. We work together till spring. Then we figure out who's got the better claim. And if you decide it's yours, then we settle it fair. Fair? Eliza laughed, sharp and humorless. Nothing in this world is fair. Maybe not. But it's better than shooting each other. She considered that. What if I say no? Then I sleep outside and we both freeze like idiots. Eliza almost smiled. Almost. You always this stubborn? Yes, ma'am. She looked at him for a long time. Then finally she nodded. All right, but I keep the rifle. Wouldn't have it any other way. They shook on it, her hand rough and cold in his. The next 3 days passed in hard, silent labor. Colt patched the roof with pine branches and mud, sealing the gaps where wind howled through. Eliza showed him the root cellar, a pit dug into the hillside covered with logs and earth. Inside, a few sacks of withered potatoes, some dried beans, and a shelf of canned goods so old the labels had faded. Not much, but enough to survive. They worked separately at first, circling each other like wary animals. Eliza tended the traps she'd set in the woods, snares for rabbits, deadfalls for larger game. Colt chopped firewood until his shoulders burned, stacking it against the cabin wall. At night they ate by the fire and spoke little. But on the 4th day, something shifted. Colt was hauling water from the creek when he heard a sound, sharp and sudden. A cry, cut short. He dropped the bucket and ran. He found Eliza 50 yards into the trees, crouched beside a fallen log. Her right hand was bleeding, dripping red onto the snow. What happened? Trap, she gasped. Went off too soon. Got my hand. Colt knelt beside her. The wound was deep, a gash across her palm where the snare wire had bitten in. Blood welled fast. Let me see. I can do it. You're shaking. Let me see. Reluctantly, she held out her hand. Colt pulled a bandana from his pocket and wrapped it tight around the wound. Hold pressure. We need to get you back to the cabin. I'm fine. You're bleeding through already. Come on. He helped her stand. She leaned on him more than she probably wanted to, but she didn't pull away. Back at the cabin, Colt cleaned the wound with whiskey. Eliza hissed through her teeth but didn't flinch. He stitched it with thread from his saddlebag, 6 careful stitches, and bound it with clean cloth. You've done this before, Eliza said. Once or twice. Where'd you learn? Ranch work. Men get hurt. You learn to fix them, or they die. Eliza flexed her fingers gingerly. Thanks. Colt nodded. That night she spoke more than she had since he'd arrived. I was 12 when my mother taught me to shoot, she said, staring into the fire. Said a girl needed to know how to protect herself. My father didn't like it, thought women shouldn't handle guns, but my mother, she was stubborn, like you. Eliza almost smiled. Yeah, like me. What happened to her? Really? The smile faded. After my father died, she just gave up. Didn't fight when the town took the land, didn't argue, just walked out into the snow one night and never came back. I looked for her for weeks, found her in the spring, down by the creek, frozen. Colt said nothing. I think she couldn't stand it, Eliza continued quietly. Being nothing, having nothing, so she chose to be nothing forever. And you stayed. I had to. It's all I got left of them. Colt understood that. The need to hold on to something, anything, when everything else had been stripped away. What about you? Eliza asked. Where are you from? Nowhere really, Kansas originally, but I left when I was 16. Why? Nothing there for me. Family? Dead. Eliza looked at him. I'm sorry. Colt shrugged. Long time ago. They sat in silence, watching the fire burn low. On the 7th day, riders came. Colt was outside, splitting wood when he heard hoofbeats. He set down the axe and moved to where he could see the trail. 3 men on horseback, picking their way up the slope. Even from a distance, Colt recognized the lead rider, Sheriff Harkin. The other 2 were younger, hard-eyed men wearing guns on their hips. Eliza appeared in the cabin doorway, rifle in hand. Get inside, Colt said quietly. No, Eliza, I'm not hiding anymore. Colt didn't argue. He moved to stand beside her. The riders stopped 20 feet from the cabin. Harkin sat easy in the saddle, grinning. Well, well, he drawled. Mr. Maddox. Settling in all right? Well enough. Harkin's eyes flicked to Eliza. I see you found my rat. Eliza's grip on the rifle tightened. She says this land's hers, Colt said. Harkin laughed. Does she now? That's funny. Because I got a deed says otherwise. Oh, wait, so do you. Her father worked this land. Her father owed money. When he died, the debt transferred to the town, legal and proper. Show me the documents. Harkin's smile thinned. Don't gotta show you a damn thing. Then I guess we got a problem. The two younger men shifted in their saddles, hands drifting toward guns. Harkin held up a hand. Easy, boys. He looked at Colt. You really want to die for a piece of worthless rock and a crazy woman? I want what I paid for. You paid for land. You got it. What you do with the squatter is your business. Squatter. Eliza's voice was ice. That's rich coming from a thief. Harkin's face darkened. Watch your mouth, girl. Or what? You'll kill me like you killed my father? The words hung in the frozen air. One of the younger men reached for his gun. Colt's Colt was out and leveled before the man's hand closed around the grip. Everyone froze. Might want to rethink that, Colt said quietly. The young man's eyes widened. He raised his hand slowly. Harkin stared at Colt. You're making a mistake. Maybe, but it's mine to make. Harkin's jaw worked. Then he spurred his horse around. Let's go. The other two followed. Before disappearing down the trail, Harkin called back. You got till spring, Maddox. Then we're coming for what's ours. They rode away. Colt lowered his gun. Eliza was shaking. He killed my father. You got proof? I got certainty. Not the same thing. She whirled on him. You believe me or not? Colt holstered his revolver. I believe Harkin's dirty, and I believe he wants this land bad enough to lie for it. But killing's another thing. He did it. Then we prove it. Eliza stared at him. Why? Why do you care? Colt met her eyes. Because I bought this land, and I don't like being played for a fool. It wasn't the whole truth, but it was enough. That night, Eliza led him to a hollow tree 100 yards from the cabin. Inside, wrapped in oilcloth, was a leather satchel. She handed it to Colt. Inside were papers, deeds, letters, claim forms, all signed by Samuel Boone, all dated before his death. Colt read them by firelight. This proves your father owned the land, he said slowly. I know. And there's no record of debt. Because there wasn't any. Colt looked up. Why didn't you show these to someone? Eliza's laugh was bitter. Who? The sheriff? The mayor? They're all in Harkin's pocket. I tried the first year. Went to the land office in Durango. They laughed me out of the building, said I was a liar, said I forged them. Why would they think that? Eliza's face hardened. Because nobody believes women like me. Like you how? She gestured at herself, her body, her face, her existence. Look at me. I'm not what men listen to. Not pretty enough. Not small enough. Not quiet enough. Colt frowned. That's horseshit. That's the world. He studied the papers again. These are real. I know. Then we use them. How? Colt thought. Harkin said he'll come in the spring. That gives us time. We find someone who'll listen, someone outside Silverton. There's nobody. There's always somebody. Eliza looked at him like he was insane. You really think we can win this? I think we can try. She shook her head slowly, but she didn't say no. The days grew shorter, colder. Snow fell almost constantly now, piling up against the cabin walls. Colt and Eliza fell into a rhythm, working, eating, surviving. He learned she could shoot better than most men he'd known, could track game through fresh snow, could read weather in the way the wind moved through the pines. She learned he didn't talk much, but when he did, he meant it, that he slept light and woke at the smallest sound, that he'd killed men before. She saw it in the way he moved, the way he carried his gun. But he didn't ask about her body, didn't comment on her size or her appearance, didn't treat her like she was fragile or broken. He treated her like a person, And that was something Eliza hadn't felt in years. One night, a blizzard rolled in, the kind that turned the world white and made breathing hurt. They huddled by the fire, wrapped in every blanket they had. "Tell me something true," Eliza said suddenly. Colt looked at her. "What?" "Something true. About you." He was quiet for a long time. Then, "I'm tired." "Of what?" "Drifting, being nobody, owning nothing." He stared into the flames. "I bought this land because I wanted to stop moving, wanted to put down roots, be something other than a gun for hire." "You think you can?" "Don't know, but I gotta try." Eliza understood that, the desperate need to be more than what the world said you were. "Tell me something true," Colt said. Eliza hesitated. Then, "I'm scared." "Of what?" "That I'll lose this place. That I'll end up like my mother. That all this fighting, all this surviving won't matter." Colt looked at her. "It matters." "How do you know?" "Because you're still here." The wind howled, the cabin shook, and for the first time in 3 years, Eliza Boone didn't feel alone. 2 weeks later, everything changed. Colt was checking the trap line when he found boot prints in the snow. Fresh, maybe an hour old. Leading toward the cabin, he ran. He found Eliza inside, pale-faced, holding a piece of paper. "What is it?" She handed it to him without speaking. The note was short, scrawled in rough handwriting. "You got till the thaw. Then you're gone. Both of you." No signature. Colt crumpled it. "They're watching us." "I know. We need to be ready." Eliza met his eyes. "Ready for what? A war?" "If it comes to that." She laughed, sharp and jagged. "You really think you can beat Harkin? He's got men, money, the whole town behind him. He's got fear. That's not the same thing." "It's enough." Colt shook his head. "Not anymore." Because something had shifted, in him, in her. They weren't just fighting for land now, they were fighting to exist. And that was a different kind of war entirely. The threat changed everything, but not in the way Colt expected. Instead of cowering, Eliza got angry. Real anger, the kind that had been building for 3 years under layers of fear and hunger and loneliness. "They think we'll run," she said that night, feeding wood into the fire with sharp, violent movements. "That's what they're counting on. Scare us enough and we'll just disappear." Colt cleaned his revolver at the table, each movement methodical. "That what you want to do?" She turned on him. "What do you think?" "I think you've been running from them in your head for 3 years. Time to stop." "Easy for you to say. You've got a gun and a mean look. I've got—" She gestured at herself again, that familiar self-dismissal. "You've got this land, you've got those documents, and you've got more spine than half the men I've known." Colt set down the cleaning rod. "Question is, what are you going to do with it?" Eliza stared at him. Something flickered in her eyes. Not hope exactly, but something harder. Determination, maybe. Or just exhaustion with being afraid. "I want them to hurt," she said quietly. "The way they hurt me. That's not justice. I don't want justice. I want them to pay." Colt understood that impulse, had felt it himself more times than he could count. Revenge doesn't fix anything. Neither does being noble. "No," Colt admitted, "but staying alive does. And if we're going to do that, we need to be smart." Eliza sat down across from him, the anger draining out of her face, leaving only tiredness. "What do you have in mind?" "We make them come to us. On our terms. They've got numbers. We've got terrain and winter." Colt looked toward the boarded window where wind rattled the wood. "Nobody fights well in the cold, not if they don't have to. So we wait? We prepare, and we wait." Eliza was quiet for a moment. Then, "My father used to say that waiting was the hardest part of anything. Waiting to see if the crops would grow, waiting to see if the mine would pay out. Just waiting." He was right. He was right about a lot of things. Her voice cracked. Didn't save him, though. Colt reached across the table and gripped her shoulder, brief, solid. "We're going to be smarter than him." She didn't pull away. "You really believe that?" "I have to." That night, Colt lay in his bedroll and listened to Eliza's breathing across the room. She didn't sleep easy. He'd learned that over the past weeks. She shifted constantly, sometimes talking in her sleep. Words he couldn't make out, but the tone was clear. Fear, grief, anger. He wondered what she dreamed about, what ghosts visited her in the dark. His own dreams weren't much better. Faces of men he'd killed, places he'd left behind, the endless, grinding sameness of moving from one nowhere to another. But this place felt different. Maybe because it came with a fight attached. Maybe because for the first time in years, he wasn't running towards something or away from it. He was just here. Whatever happened next, at least it would matter. The next morning dawned clear and brutally cold. Colt woke before first light and built up the fire. Eliza stirred as he moved around the cabin. "What time is it?" she mumbled. "Early." She sat up, blankets wrapped around her shoulders. "You always wake up this early?" "Habit." "From what?" "Living rough. You sleep too long, you miss things. Things that can kill you." Eliza absorbed that. "You've lived rough a long time, haven't you?" "Most of my life." "Ever think about stopping?" Colt poured coffee from the pot he'd set to boil. "That's why I'm here." He handed her a cup. She took it, fingers wrapped around the warmth. "I never thought about stopping," she said after a moment. "Never had anywhere to go. This was always it. The cabin, the land. Even when I was a girl, I knew I'd probably die here." "That's dark." "That's practical." She sipped the coffee. "You grow up knowing you're different, knowing the world doesn't want you. You learn to see things clear. No fairy tales, no happy endings, just survival." Colt sat down across from her. "You think that's all there is? Survival? For people like me?" "Yeah." "What about people like me?" Eliza looked at him, really looked, like she was trying to figure out a puzzle. "I don't know what kind of person you are yet." "Fair enough." They drank their coffee in silence as dawn broke outside, turning the snow blue-white. After breakfast, Colt began fortifying the cabin. He reinforced the door with boards torn from the fallen-down shed out back, checked the sight lines from the windows, mapped out defensive positions in his head. Eliza watched him work. "You've done this before?" "Once or twice." "Where?" "Lot of places. Ranch wars, mostly. Homesteaders fighting off cattle barons, sometimes the other way around." "Which side were you on?" Colt hammered in another nail. "Whoever paid me." "That bother you?" He paused. "It does now." "Why now?" "Because now it's personal." Eliza considered that. Then she picked up a hammer and started helping him. They worked through the morning, barely speaking, but there was a rhythm to it, a shared understanding of what needed doing. Colt would position a board, and Eliza would hold it steady while he nailed. She'd point out weak spots, and he'd shore them up. Around midday, she stopped suddenly. "We need more supplies." "From where?" "Town." Colt set down his hammer. "That's a bad idea. We can't make it through winter on what we've got. You know that. Harkin sees us in town." "Let him see us. Let everyone see us." Eliza's jaw set. "I'm tired of hiding, and besides, if we're going to fight, we need ammunition, food, medicine. Can't get that up here." Colt wanted to argue, but she was right. "All right," he said, "but we do it smart. In and out. No confrontations." "Can't promise that." "Eliza T. I said I can't promise. Didn't say I'd go looking for trouble." She grabbed her coat. "But if trouble finds me, I'm not running anymore." They saddled Colt's horse, the only one they had, and started down the mountain. The trail was treacherous with ice, forcing them to move slow. Eliza rode behind Colt, arms wrapped around his waist to keep from sliding off. "You ever ride before?" he asked. "Not much. Father had a mule, but it died the winter after he did." "You're doing fine." "I'm terrified." "That's normal." The ride took 2 hours. By the time they reached Silverton, the sun was high and weak in a colorless sky. The town looked the same as when Colt had left it. Gray buildings, gray people, everything covered in a film of cold and exhaustion. They tied the horse outside the general store. A few people on the street stopped to stare. Colt saw recognition flash across some faces, saw hostility in others. Eliza walked into the store like she owned it. The shopkeeper, a thin man with nervous eyes, looked up from his ledger and went pale. "Eliza Boone," he said. Not a greeting, a statement of fact tinged with something like fear. "Mr. Garrett," Eliza's voice was steady. "I need supplies." Garrett glanced toward the door like he expected someone to burst through. I can't serve you. Why not? You know why. Say it. Garrett's face flushed. Sheriff's orders. You're not to be served in this town. Colt stepped forward. I'm buying. She's just helping me shop. Garrett looked at him, at the gun on his hip, at the flatness in his eyes. I heard you bought Blackpine. That's right. And you're letting her stay up there. She's got as much right to be there as I do. Garrett's mouth opened and closed. Finally, what do you need? They bought flour, salt pork, coffee, beans, ammunition for both the Sharps and Colt's revolver, lamp oil, a tin of salve for wounds. Garrett tallied it up with shaking hands, named a price that was probably double what it should have been. Colt paid without arguing. As they were loading the supplies into saddlebags, a voice cut through the cold air. Well, look what we got here. Colt turned. 3 men stood in the street. 2 he didn't recognize, rough types, the kind who did dirty work for anyone who'd pay. The third was one of the riders who'd come up to the cabin with Harkin. Billy Carson, Eliza said quietly, used to work for my father. Billy grinned. It wasn't friendly. Used to work for a lot of people. Now I work for the sheriff. Congratulations, Colt said. You must be proud. Billy's grin faded. You got a mouth on you, stranger. I got a lot of things. Yeah? Well, you also got something that don't belong to you. That land up on the ridge belongs to me. Got the deed to prove it. Deed's horseshit, and you know it. Colt finished tying down the saddlebags. You want to discuss property law, we can do that, but not here. Not now. Billy stepped closer. Maybe I want to discuss it right here. Then you're dumber than you look. One of the other men reached for his gun. Eliza's voice cracked like a whip. Touch that and you'll regret it. Everyone froze. She hadn't drawn the rifle slung across her back. Hadn't even reached for it. But something in her tone made the man's hand stop halfway to his holster. You threatening me? He asked, trying to sound tough. It didn't work. I'm telling you the truth, Eliza said. You draw on us in the middle of town. You better kill us both, because if you don't, I'll make sure everyone knows who started it, and Sheriff Harkin won't like that kind of attention. Billy's eyes narrowed. You think you're smart. I think I'm tired, and I think you're wasting my time. Eliza swung up onto the horse behind Colt. We're leaving now. You can let us, or you can make this complicated. Your choice. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Billy stepped back. This ain't over. It never is, Colt said. They rode out of town at a steady walk, not running, but not lingering. Colt felt eyes on them the whole way, felt the weight of violence held back by the thinnest thread of civility. Once they were clear of the buildings, Eliza let out a breath she'd been holding. That was stupid, she said. Yep. Could have gotten us killed. Yep. You don't seem bothered. Colt urged the horse faster. We're alive. That's what matters. For now. The ride back up the mountain was harder, the horse laboring under the extra weight of supplies and 2 riders. They had to stop twice to let the animal rest. Each time, Colt scanned the trail behind them, looking for pursuers. None came, but they would, eventually. It was nearly dark when they reached the cabin. They unloaded the supplies quickly, working in the fading light. Colt fed and watered the horse while Eliza stored the food in the root cellar. Inside, they ate a cold supper. Neither wanted to take the time to cook. The confrontation in town hung between them, unspoken but heavy. Finally, Eliza broke the silence. Billy Carson wasn't always like that. Like what? Mean. When he worked for my father, he was decent, quiet, did his job. But after my father died, after Harkin took over the land, I saw him change, saw him become someone else. People do that, Colt said. Become what they need to be to survive. Is that what you did? He looked at her. What do you think? Eliza didn't answer right away. Then, I think you were probably dangerous before, but you kept it buried, and I think something happened that made you stop burying it. She wasn't wrong. There was a ranch, Colt said slowly, 5 years back. Outside Cheyenne. Owner hired me for protection, said he had rustlers coming after his herd, paid good money, so I took the job. He paused, staring into the fire. Turned out he wasn't the victim. He was stealing land from homesteaders, burning them out, killing anyone who fought back. And I was helping him do it. Eliza waited. I found out when one of the homesteaders came to me. Woman about your age. Showed me proof, deeds, letters, everything. Said the rancher had killed her husband, burned her house with her kids inside. What did you do? I shot the rancher right there in his own office. Then I burned his house down and rode away. Eliza absorbed that. You kill the kids? No, they were already dead, but I might as well have. I worked for the man who did it. That's not the same thing. Close enough. They sat in silence. Outside wind moaned through the pines. Is that why you're helping me? Eliza asked. Because you feel guilty? Maybe partly, but mostly because you remind me of her. That homesteader woman. The way she looked at me when she told me what happened. Like she knew I wouldn't believe her. Like she was used to not being believed. And you believed her anyway? Yeah. Why? Colt met her eyes. Because I recognized the look. I'd seen it before. On people who'd been pushed past their breaking point. People who had nothing left to lose except the truth. Eliza's throat worked. I'm past my breaking point. I know. I'm barely holding on. I know that too. She looked away, blinking hard. I don't want to be weak. You're not weak, you're human. Same thing in this world. No, Colt said firmly. It's not. The fire crackled. Shadows danced on the walls. After a while, Eliza spoke again. When my mother died, I found her diary. She'd been writing in it for years. And in the last entry, she wrote, I'm tired of being invisible. I'd rather be nothing than keep pretending I'm something. Colt didn't know what to say to that. I understood it, Eliza continued. That tiredness, that feeling of being erased every day, bit by bit, until you're not sure you exist anymore. And I thought about following her, walking out into the snow, ending it. But you didn't. No, because I got angry instead, and anger kept me alive. Anger's useful, up to a point. What's past that point? Purpose. Eliza looked at him. Is that what this is? Purpose? For me, yeah, I think so. And what happens when it's over? When we win or lose and you move on? Colt didn't have an answer for that. Didn't know if he'd move on. Didn't know if he could. The question hung in the air like smoke. Over the next week, they fell into a new routine. Colt taught Eliza how to shoot better, not just aim and fire, but shoot with intention. How to control her breathing, how to lead a moving target, how to make every bullet count. She was a quick study. Better than quick, she was natural. The rifle seemed to disappear in her hands, becoming an extension of her will. You've got good instincts, Colt said one afternoon as she put 3 shots through a pine knot at 50 yards. Had a good teacher. My mother was a better shot than my father. She just never told him. Smart woman. She had to be. World doesn't give women room to be anything else. They practiced other things too. Hand-to-hand fighting, how to move quietly through snow, how to use the terrain for cover. Colt treated it like preparing for war because that's what it was. And Eliza absorbed everything he taught her with a focus that was almost frightening. One evening, as they cleaned their weapons by firelight, she asked, if they come in force, 10 men, 20, what are our chances? Colt considered lying, decided against it. Not good. How not good? Depends on a lot of things. Weather, timing, whether they're smart or just aggressive. But realistically? Realistically, we're outgunned and outnumbered. Best we can hope for is to make them pay so high a price they decide it's not worth it. Eliza nodded slowly. So we make them bleed. We make them think about bleeding. Big difference. Explain. Colt set down his cleaning rod. Most men won't charge into a fight if they think they'll die. They'll do it if they think they might get hurt. That's just risk. But death? That makes them hesitate. And hesitation is what we need. So we kill 1 or 2 and the rest run away? We make them believe we can kill 1 or 2. Whether we actually do it, that depends on them. Eliza smiled grimly. You think like a coward. I think like someone who wants to live. Same thing. Not always. That night, the temperature dropped so low that frost formed on the inside of the cabin walls. They piled every blanket they had onto the bedrolls and still shivered. Colt fed the fire constantly, burning through their wood supply faster than he wanted. Around midnight, Eliza's teeth started chattering so hard she couldn't stop. "Come here," Colt said. She looked at him, suspicious. "What? You're freezing. I'm freezing. We share body heat, or we both lose fingers." She hesitated. "I'm not trying anything," Colt said. "I'm trying not to die." Slowly, Eliza moved her bedroll next to his. They lay back to back, sharing blankets, sharing warmth. Colt could feel her shaking. "This is humiliating," she muttered. "Staying alive usually is." Gradually, the shaking subsided. Her breathing steadied. Colt felt his own body relax, the cold retreating to the edges. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For what?" For just being decent." Colt didn't know what to say to that, so he said nothing. They fell asleep like that. Two people who'd been alone too long, finding something like comfort in proximity. When Colt woke, gray dawn light filtered through the gaps in the boards. Eliza was already up, building the fire back to life. "Sleep all right?" she asked, without turning around. "Well enough. You?" "Better than I have in months." They didn't talk about it, didn't make it into something it wasn't, just ate breakfast and went about their work. But that night, and every night after, they pushed their bedrolls together without discussion. 10 days after their trip to town, the second threat arrived. Colt found it nailed to a tree 50 yards from the cabin. A piece of paper with 2 words scrawled in what looked like dried blood. "Last warning." He brought it back to show Eliza. She read it, face expressionless. Then she crumpled it up and threw it in the fire. "How long you think we have?" she asked. "Not long. They're building up to something." "Good." Colt looked at her. "Good?" "I'm tired of waiting. Let them come." "Eliza." "No." She turned to face him, and her eyes were hard. "I've been afraid for 3 years. Hiding, running, barely surviving. I'm done. If they want this land, they're going to have to kill me for it, and I plan to make that as hard as possible." Colt saw it then, the change in her. The scared woman in the corner with the shaking rifle was gone. In her place was something sharper, colder, dangerous. "All right," he said, "then we make ready." They spent the next 2 days preparing. Colt showed Eliza how to create fallback positions, places they could retreat to if the cabin was overrun. They cached supplies in the woods, ammunition, food, blankets, places they could run to and still survive. They set traps along the trail. Nothing deadly. Colt drew the line at murder without warning, but enough to slow attackers down. Tripwires, noisemakers, a deadfall that would spook horses. And they waited. The waiting was its own kind of torture. Every sound became a threat. Every shadow could be a man with a gun. They took turns sleeping, always one person awake and watching. Colt noticed Eliza getting quieter, more internal. She'd stand at the window for hours, rifle in hand, staring down the trail. "You all right?" he asked one night. "Fine." "You don't look fine." She glanced at him. "What do I look like?" "Like you're planning something." Eliza smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Maybe I am." "Want to share?" "Not yet." That worried him, but he didn't push. Pushing Eliza was like pushing a boulder uphill, exhausting and pointless. On the 14th day after the warning, riders appeared on the trail. Colt spotted them first. 6 men on horseback, moving slow and cautious. He recognized Sheriff Harkin in the lead. Billy Carson rode beside him. The others were hired guns. You could tell by the way they carried themselves, loose and ready. "They're here," Colt said. Eliza moved to the window, rifle already in hand. "I see them." The riders stopped 100 yards out. Harkin dismounted and walked forward alone, hands visible and empty. "Maddox," he called. "Let's talk." Colt cracked the door open. "Talk from there. This doesn't have to go bad? Then leave." Harkin shook his head. "Can't do that. You're harboring a fugitive. She's not a fugitive. She's a thief and a liar, and I got a warrant for her arrest." Colt glanced at Eliza. She stared at Harkin with an expression that could cut glass. "Show me the warrant," Colt yelled. Harkin pulled a paper from his coat and held it up. Even from a distance, Colt could see it was official looking. Could be real, could be forged. Didn't matter. "That's horse shit," Eliza shouted before Colt could stop her. "You're a liar and a murderer." The men behind Harkin shifted in their saddles. Harkin's face darkened. "You got one chance, girl. Come down here peaceful and we'll settle this legal. Otherwise... Otherwise what? Eliza's voice was ice. You'll kill me like you killed my father? A long silence. Then Harkin smiled. Your father died of pneumonia. Everyone knows that. Everyone knows you're a lying bastard. Last chance. Eliza raised her rifle and fired. The bullet kicked up snow 3 feet in front of Harkin. He stumbled backward, hand going to his gun. Next one's through your chest, Eliza screamed. The hired guns drew their weapons. Colt grabbed Eliza and yanked her away from the window. What the hell are you doing? Ending this by getting us killed. Better than waiting for them to do it. Gunfire erupted outside. Bullets punched through the boarded windows, sending splinters flying. Colt and Eliza hit the floor as the cabin filled with the sound of breaking wood and ricochets. It lasted maybe 15 seconds. Then silence. Harkin's voice carried through the walls. You got till nightfall, then we burn you out. Hoofbeats. The riders retreating. Colt raised his head cautiously. The cabin was a mess. Bullet holes in the walls, glass from the unboarded window shattered across the floor, but they were alive. He turned to Eliza. She was breathing hard, eyes wild. That was stupid, he said. That was honest. Honesty gets you killed. So does hiding. Colt wanted to argue, but she wasn't wrong. Harkin had come to finish this, warrant or no warrant. The talking was over. All right, he said. Then we do it your way. Eliza looked at him. Which is? We fight. For the first time since the riders appeared, she smiled, really smiled. Good. They had maybe 6 hours until dark. Colt used them to shore up their defenses, blocking the worst of the bullet holes, creating firing positions, loading every weapon they had. Eliza moved through the preparations like someone in a trance. Focused, calm, too calm. What are you thinking? Colt asked as they worked. I'm thinking that I'm done being scared. I'm thinking that they want me to run or hide or die quiet, and I'm not going to do any of those things. What are you going to do? She checked the load in her rifle. I'm going to make them remember me. Night came cold and clear. Stars burned overhead like chips of ice. Colt and Eliza waited inside the darkened cabin, watching the trail through the gun ports Colt had cut in the walls. Around midnight, they saw lights, torches, moving up the slope. Here we go, Colt muttered. Eliza said nothing, just brought her rifle up and sighted down the barrel. The lights got closer. Colt counted 8 torches, more men than before. Harkin wasn't taking chances. They stopped just outside rifle range. One of the torches detached from the group and moved forward. Billy Carson. He was shouting something, but Colt couldn't make it out. What's he saying? Eliza whispered. Don't know, don't care. The torch came closer. Colt could see Billy now, holding the torch high, the other hand raised in a gesture that might have been surrender or might have been mockery. Eliza, Billy called. This is your last chance. Come out and nobody else has to die. Eliza's finger tightened on the trigger. Wait, Colt said. Why? Because the second you shoot, this becomes a war. You ready for that? She looked at him. In the dim light, her eyes were black holes. I've been ready for 3 years. Then do it. Eliza took a breath, held it, and fired. The torch dropped from Billy Carson's hand and hit the snow with a hiss. He staggered backward, clutching his shoulder where the bullet had torn through. Son of a bitch! Billy's scream cut through the night. She shot me! The other torches scattered like startled birds. Men dove for cover behind trees and rocks. Somewhere in the chaos, Harkin was shouting orders, but his voice was drowned out by Billy's cursing. Colt fired twice into the darkness, not aiming to kill, just keeping heads down. The muzzle flash lit up the cabin interior for a split second, then plunged them back into blackness. Reload, he said. Eliza was already doing it, her hand steady. I aimed for his chest. Shooting uphill throws your aim off. I'll remember that. Return fire came in a ragged volley. Bullets slammed into the cabin walls, punching through in places where the wood was thin. One round whistled past Colt's ear so close he felt the displaced air. He dropped flat and crawled to a different firing position. Outside, the torches had been extinguished. Smart, harder to aim without targets. They're moving, Eliza whispered. Colt listened. She was right. He could hear boots crunching in the snow, trying to be quiet and failing. They were spreading out, looking for flanking positions. "How many you count?" he asked. "8 torches, could be more without." "Probably is." The gunfire stopped. In the sudden silence, Colt could hear his own heartbeat, the sound of Eliza's breathing beside him. Then Harkin's voice boomed out, "Maddox, you're making a mistake!" Colt didn't answer, let them wonder. "You ain't got nowhere to go. We got men on every trail down this mountain." Still nothing. "And come morning, there'll be 20 more. You can't win this." Eliza started to respond, but Colt touched her arm. She fell silent. They waited. After a minute, Harkin tried again. "I know you're a practical man, Maddox. Let's be practical. Give us the girl and you walk away. Keep your land, keep your life. This doesn't have to be your fight." "Like hell," Eliza muttered. Colt agreed, but he still didn't answer. Making Harkin talk was useful. Every word gave away his position, his strategy, his doubts. "She's nothing," Harkin shouted. "Just a crazy woman squatting on land she don't own. Why die for that?" "Because she matters," Colt called back. The words surprised him as much as they probably surprised Harkin. But they were true. "Matters?" Harkin laughed. "Boy, you've been up here too long, starting to think like her, starting to believe her lies." "Saw the documents. They're not lies." A pause. Then, "Documents can be forged. So can warrants." Another pause. Longer this time. "Last chance!" Harkin yelled. "Sun comes up. We're coming in hard. You'll both die." "Maybe," Colt said, "but you'll die first." Silence fell again. Colt counted to 60, then to 100. Nothing. "They're not leaving," Eliza said. "No, they're digging in, waiting for daylight." "So what do we do?" Colt thought about it. They had maybe 5 hours until dawn. 5 hours to come up with something better than sitting here waiting to be slaughtered. "We leave," he said. Eliza's head snapped toward him. "What?" "Not permanently, but we can't hold this cabin against a dozen men. We need to move to better ground." "Where?" "The ridge line, above the tree line. Open sight lines, harder to flank. We cached supplies up there, remember?" "That's a mile and a half." "In the dark. With them out there." "You got a better idea?" She didn't. They gathered what they could carry: ammunition, food, blankets, the precious documents wrapped in oilcloth. Colt strapped his bedroll to his back. Eliza did the same. "What about the cabin?" she asked. "What about it?" "They'll burn it." "Probably. That's all I have left of my father." Colt looked at her in the darkness. "Your father's in here?" He tapped his chest. "And in you, not in the wood." "Easy for you to say. Nothing about this is easy." They waited until the moon dropped behind a bank of clouds, plunging the night into deeper blackness. Then Colt eased open the back window, the one they'd left unboarded for exactly this reason. He went first, dropping into the snow and moving immediately to cover. Nothing. No shouts, no gunfire. Eliza came through next, landing with less grace but making it. Colt gripped her arm and pulled her close. "Straight uphill," he breathed. "Fast and quiet. Don't stop for anything." She nodded. They ran. The snow was knee-deep in places, sucking at their boots, slowing them down. Colt's lungs burned from the cold and the altitude. Behind them he heard a shout. They'd been spotted. "Go!" he hissed. Eliza stumbled, caught herself, kept moving. Gunfire erupted behind them, but they were already into the tree line, branches whipping at their faces. A bullet clipped a trunk beside Colt's head, showering him with frozen bark. They climbed. Colt's legs screamed. His breath came in ragged gasps. Beside him, Eliza was doing worse. Her heavier frame wasn't built for running uphill in snow. But she didn't stop, didn't slow down. The trees thinned. They broke out onto the ridgeline, a rocky spine of land where the wind had scoured the snow down to patches. Boulders jutted up like broken teeth. Colt found the cache they'd hidden, a depression between two rocks covered with branches. He tore it open, pulled out the supplies. "Help me!" he gasped. Together they built a hasty shelter using the rocks and their blankets. Not much, but it would block the wind and hide their shapes. Then they waited, rifles ready, as the sounds of pursuit grew closer. Men burst out of the tree line below, 4 of them, spread out, moving cautiously now. They'd lost sight of their quarry and knew it. "There!" one of them shouted, pointing uphill. Eliza fired. The man's hat flew off and he dove behind a boulder. "Don't waste ammunition," Colt said. "I'm not wasting anything." The 4 men below took cover and started returning fire. But they were shooting uphill at a target they could barely see. Their bullets went wide or fell short. Colt picked his shots carefully. He aimed for the muzzle flashes, the movement behind rocks. He didn't know if he hit anything, but the fire from below slackened. Then, from somewhere in the darkness, Harkin's voice, "Fall back! Regroup at the cabin!" The shooting stopped. The men below retreated into the trees. Colt and Eliza waited, weapons still trained downhill, until the forest swallowed the last sounds of retreat. "We did it," Eliza breathed. "For now." They ran. They regrouped. Different thing. Eliza sagged against the rock. Now that the immediate danger had passed, exhaustion crashed over her like a wave. Her hands started shaking. "You all right?" Colt asked. "I shot a man." "You did?" "I aimed to kill him." "I know." "Does it get easier?" Colt thought about all the men he'd killed, all the faces that visited him in dreams. "No, it gets familiar. That's not the same as easy." Eliza wrapped her arms around herself. "I thought I'd feel different, stronger maybe, or vindicated." "What do you feel?" "Tired." "That's normal." They huddled in their makeshift shelter as the wind picked up, bringing fresh snow. Below, they could see lights moving around the cabin. Harkin's men, probably trying to figure out where their quarry had gone. "Think they'll come up here?" Eliza asked. "Eventually, but not tonight. Too dark, too dangerous. They'll wait for dawn. And then? And then we see who wants this more." Dawn came slowly, bleeding gray light across the mountains. From their vantage point, Colt and Eliza could see the cabin below and the dozen men surrounding it. Harkin was easy to spot, giving orders, pointing uphill. They'd found the trail. It was only a matter of time. 12, Eliza counted. "I see 12. "I see 14. "Where?" Colt pointed to 2 shapes moving on the far side of the clearing. "Flankers. They're trying to get above us." "Can they?" "If we let them." He studied the terrain. The ridge line ran east-west, with steep drops on either side. The only approach was from below, where the trees gave way to rock. Defensible, but not indefinitely. Not against 14 men. "We need to even the odds," he said. "How?" Colt pointed to a section of the slope below them, a field of loose scree and snow, held in place by nothing more than friction and cold. "Avalanche," Eliza looked where he was pointing. "You think that'll go?" "With the right encouragement." "And if it doesn't?" "Then we gave away our position for nothing." She considered that. "Then, do it." Colt lined up his shot carefully. The target was a snow cornice overhanging the scree field, a lip of frozen snow and ice that looked ready to collapse under its own weight. He fired. The bullet struck the cornice dead center. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a sound like tearing fabric, the cornice broke free. It fell onto the scree field below, and that's when everything went to hell. The entire slope let go. Thousands of tons of snow and rock started moving, slowly at first, then faster. It sounded like thunder, like the mountain was coming apart. The men below heard it too late. Colt saw them turn, saw their faces register horror as the white death rushed toward them. "Get down!" someone screamed, but there was nowhere to go. The avalanche hit the tree line like a fist. Trees snapped, men disappeared, the whole world turned white and roaring. It lasted maybe 20 seconds. When it stopped, the forest below was buried under 10 feet of debris. The cabin had survived, barely, but everything around it was gone, transformed, and the men who'd been flanking on the far side were nowhere to be seen. "Sweet merciful," Eliza stopped. "Did we just kill them?" Colt scanned the devastation through his rifle sights. He saw movement, men digging themselves out, helping others. Some were injured, limping, but they were alive. Most of them made it. How many didn't? Can't tell yet. Below, the survivors were regrouping around the cabin. Colt counted 9. 5 men unaccounted for, either buried, fled, or hiding. Harkin emerged from the cabin, his face visible even at this distance. He looked up toward the ridgeline, and even though Colt couldn't see his expression clearly, He could imagine it. Rage. Pure incandescent rage. "He's going to come for us now," Eliza said. "Yeah. No more waiting for dawn, no more regrouping." "Nope." "Good." Colt looked at her. "Good? I'm tired of dragging this out. Let's finish it." But finishing it wasn't that simple. Harkin and his men stayed below, out of rifle range, clearly debating their next move. Colt could see them gesturing, arguing. A couple of them looked like they wanted to leave, couldn't blame them. They'd signed up for an easy eviction, not a war, but Harkin wasn't letting them go. He was a man who'd put too much into this to back down now. Pride and greed, Colt figured. Dangerous combination. Around mid-morning, one of Harkin's men started climbing alone. No gun drawn, hands visible, moving slow. "What's he doing?" Eliza muttered. "Parley, maybe." The man got within shouting distance and stopped. Colt recognized him. One of the hired guns from town, older than the others, with gray in his beard. "Name's Garrett," the man called. "Sheriff wants to talk." "So, talk," Colt yelled back. "Face to face, no guns." "That's stupid." "Probably, but he's offering terms." Colt glanced at Eliza. She shrugged. "Can't hurt to listen." "Can definitely hurt to listen." "Then don't go." But curiosity got the better of him. Colt set down his rifle and stood up, hands visible. "I'm coming down. You try anything, my partner puts a bullet through your eye." Garrett nodded. "Understood." Colt descended carefully, watching for traps. But Garrett seemed genuine. His hands never moved toward weapons. His posture was relaxed. When they met on a flat section of rock, Garrett even smiled a little. "Hell of a morning," Garrett said. "You could have stayed in bed." "Could have. Didn't." Garrett pulled out a tobacco pouch and started rolling a cigarette. "Sheriff's got a proposition." "I'm listening." "He'll pay you $500 to walk away. Leave the land, leave the girl, ride out today, and don't look back." Colt almost laughed. "That's his offer." "That's a lot of money." "Not enough." Garrett lit his cigarette. "He figured you'd say that. So here's the other half. You don't take it, he's riding down to Durango, bringing back the marshal and 30 deputies. Legal authority to clear this ridge by force. The marshal won't come for a property dispute. He will if the sheriff tells him you're armed insurrectionists threatening the peace. That's horseshit. Don't matter if it's true, just matters if people believe it." Garrett took a drag. "And Harkin's good at making people believe things." Colt thought about that. A federal marshal changed everything, turned this from a local fight into something bigger, something he and Eliza couldn't win. "How long do I have to decide?" "Rest of the day. Come nightfall, he rides out." Garrett flicked ash into the snow. "For what it's worth, I think you're on the right side of this. But right doesn't mean much when you're dead." "Appreciated." Garrett nodded and started back down. Colt climbed back to the shelter. Eliza was waiting, rifle across her knees. "Well?" she asked. He told her. She listened without interrupting. When he finished, she stared out at the mountains for a long time. "You should take it," she said finally. "What?" $500. That's more money than you've probably seen at once. Take it and go." "And leave you here?" "I'm not your problem." Colt sat down beside her. "You're right. You're not my problem, but you're my fight. Different thing." "Why?" Her voice cracked. "Why is this your fight? You've got nothing to gain and everything to lose. I'm nobody. This land it's just dirt and rocks. Why die for it?" "Because I'm tired of running, tired of backing down, tired of letting bullies win because it's easier than standing up to them." Colt met her eyes. "And because you're not nobody. Not to me." Eliza's face twisted. For a moment, Colt thought she might cry, but she didn't. Instead, she laughed, bitter and broken. "You're an idiot. Probably. We're going to die up here. Maybe, and it won't change anything. Harkin will get the land anyway. He'll make up some story about how we were thieves or lunatics, and everyone will believe him. Maybe," Colt said again. "But they'll remember us. They'll remember we didn't back down. Who cares about being remembered?" "I do. And I think you do too." Eliza looked away. "My mother wasn't remembered. My father wasn't remembered. They disappeared like they never existed. That's not true. You remember them. I'm one person. One person's enough." They sat in silence, watching the sun arc across the sky. Below, Harkin's men had built a fire and were brewing coffee. Looked almost peaceful if you ignored the guns. Around noon, Eliza spoke again. When I was a girl, my father took me to the creek, taught me to pan for gold. We never found anything. This was before the silver. But I loved it anyway. Just sitting there in the cold water, sifting through dirt, looking for something valuable. She pulled her knees up to her chest. He told me a story that day about a woman who lived up in these mountains 100 years ago, all alone. Everyone said she was crazy, living up there by herself. But she didn't care. She built a cabin, hunted for food, survived every winter until she died at 90 years old. What's the point? Colt asked. The point is, nobody remembers her name. Nobody remembers what she looked like or why she came here. But they remember she existed. They remember she refused to be driven out. Eliza looked at him. Maybe that's enough. Maybe it is. She stood up, brushing snow off her pants. All right, let's give them an answer. You sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. Colt stood too. Together they walked to the edge of the ridge where they could be seen from below. Harkin was standing by the fire. When he saw them, he straightened. Well, he shouted. What's it going to be? Colt took a breath. Then he cupped his hands around his mouth and yelled, Go to hell! Even from this distance, he saw Harkin's face darken. You're making a mistake, Harkin screamed. Wouldn't be my first. I'll bury you both. You can try. Harkin turned and started giving orders. His men scattered, grabbing weapons, preparing for assault. Eliza touched Colt's arm. No going back now. Nope. Thank you. For what? For staying. Colt nodded. There wasn't anything to say to that. They returned to their shelter and checked their weapons. Colt had maybe 40 rounds left. Eliza had 30. Not much, but it would have to do. The attack came an hour later. This time, Harkin didn't bother with strategy. He just sent his men straight up the slope in a line, firing as they came. Overwhelming force. Crude, but effective. Colt and Eliza met them with steady fire. Colt aimed for legs. Harder to kill a man that way, but harder for him to keep climbing too. Eliza aimed for a center mass. No hesitation now. Men went down. Some stayed down. Others crawled back to cover. But they kept coming. Reload, Colt shouted. His fingers were numb from the cold, fumbling with cartridges. Beside him, Eliza's rifle barked again and again, each shot deliberate. A bullet struck the rock beside Colt's head, spraying him with stone chips. He felt blood on his face, but didn't have time to check how bad it was. They're getting close, Eliza yelled. She was right. The attackers were within 50 yards now, using rocks for cover, advancing by sections. Professional. Harkin must have hired better men than Colt thought. He fired 3 times in quick succession. One man spun and fell. Another ducked back behind cover. Eliza's rifle clicked empty. I'm out, she said. Take mine. Colt handed her his rifle and drew his revolver. Less range, but at these distances it would work. A man appeared from behind a boulder 20 yards away. Colt shot him twice in the chest. The man folded. Another came from the left. Eliza got him with Colt's rifle. But there were too many. For every man they stopped, 2 more kept coming. We need to fall back, Colt shouted. To where? Good question. Behind them was nothing but open ridge and a 1,000-foot drop. The rocks! Colt pointed to a cluster of boulders 30 yards back. Better cover! They ran, bullets kicking up snow around their feet. Colt felt something tug at his coat, too close. Eliza stumbled, but kept moving. They made it to the rocks and dove behind them. You hit? Colt gasped. No, you? Don't think so. The attackers had reached their original position. Colt counted 5 men still standing. Not great odds, but better than 9. He reloaded his revolver with shaking hands. Beside him, Eliza was doing the same with the rifle. We can't hold here, she said. I know. So what do we do? Colt looked around. The boulder cluster offered decent protection, but it was a dead end. Once the attackers flanked them, it was over. Unless... See that drop? He pointed to the edge of the ridge, where the land fell away into a steep slope of snow and scree. Yeah? We go down. That's suicide. Staying here's suicide. Eliza looked at the drop, looked at the men advancing toward them, looked at Colt. All right, she said. On three? On three. They counted together. 1, 2, 3. They ran for the edge and jumped. The world turned into a blur of white and pain. Colt hit the slope hard, his body bouncing off rocks hidden beneath the snow. He tried to control his fall, but there was no controlling it. Gravity had him now, and it wasn't letting go. He tumbled, rolled, slid. The rifle flew from his hands. His revolver stayed holstered only because he'd had the sense to tie it down. Snow filled his mouth, his eyes, his ears. He couldn't tell up from down. Then he hit something that stopped him cold. A tree. The impact knocked the wind out of his lungs. He lay there gasping, trying to figure out if he was dead. His ribs screamed. His left shoulder felt wrong, but he could move his fingers, his toes. Alive. Eliza! He tried to shout, but it came out as a wheeze. He forced himself to sit up. The world spun. He was maybe 100 feet below where they'd jumped, wedged against a pine tree on a narrow ledge. Above him, he could hear shouting. The men hadn't followed. Too steep, too dangerous in the fading light. But no sign of Eliza. Eliza! He called again, louder this time. Nothing. Panic clawed at his chest. He pulled himself to his feet, ignoring the pain, and started searching. The slope was a maze of rocks and trees and shadows. She could be anywhere. He found her 30 feet downslope, half buried in a drift. Not moving. Colt slid down to her, his heart hammering. Eliza, Eliza, come on! He dug the snow away from her face. Her eyes were closed, her skin pale. But when he pressed his fingers to her throat, he felt a pulse. She groaned. Thank God, Colt breathed. Her eyes fluttered open. Don't thank him. Thank the snow. Can you move? She tried to sit up, gasped, and fell back. Something's wrong. My leg. Colt checked. Her right leg was bent at an angle that made his stomach turn, broken, probably in 2 places. Don't look at it, he said. How bad? Bad enough. Eliza closed her eyes. Just leave me. Not a chance. Colt, I can't walk. You can't carry me. We're both dead if you stay. Then we're both dead. That's stupid. Yeah, well, I'm good at stupid. Above them, the shouting had stopped. Colt could see lights moving along the ridge. Torches again. They were searching, but the darkness and the terrain were making it slow work. We need to move, he said. Can you handle pain? I've been handling it for 3 years. This is going to be worse. He found a broken branch and used his belt to lash it to her leg as a splint. Eliza bit down on her glove to keep from screaming. Sweat poured down her face despite the cold. When he was done, she was shaking. That's your idea of medical care? I'm a cowboy, not a doctor. Could have fooled me. Colt got her arm around his shoulders and hauled her upright. She swayed, nearly passed out, but stayed conscious. Where are we going? She gasped. Down, then east. There's a mining camp about 3 miles from here, abandoned, but it'll have shelter. 3 miles, with a broken leg. You got a better idea? She didn't. They started moving. Every step was agony for Eliza, but she didn't complain, just gritted her teeth and kept going. Colt half carried, half dragged her through the snow, his own injuries screaming at him to stop. Behind them, the lights kept searching. Voices echoed through the darkness, distorted by distance and wind. It took them 2 hours to cover a mile. By then, Eliza was delirious with pain, mumbling things that didn't make sense. Colt's shoulder had gone numb, and he was pretty sure he'd cracked at least 2 ribs. But they kept moving. The mining camp appeared out of the darkness like a gift. 3 collapsed buildings and a mine shaft sealed with rotting timbers. Not much, but enough. Colt got Eliza into the least damaged building, what had probably been a bunkhouse. He cleared snow and debris from a corner and laid her down as gently as he could. She was unconscious now. That was probably a mercy. He built a small fire using wood from the collapsed structures, keeping it tiny to avoid attracting attention. The warmth was minimal, but it was something. Then he examined his own injuries. His shoulder was dislocated. He could tell by the way it hung. He'd set dislocations before, but never his own. This was going to hurt. He found a sturdy beam, wedged his arm against it, and pulled. The shoulder popped back into place with a sound like a branch breaking. Colt saw stars, bit through his lip, tasted blood. But when the world stopped spinning, his arm worked again. More or less. He checked Eliza's leg. Still bad. Probably needed a real doctor or she'd lose it. They had maybe a day before infection set in. Less if they were unlucky. Outside, snow started falling again. Heavy, wet flakes that would cover their tracks. That was good, but it also meant they were trapped here until the storm passed. Colt sat with his back against the wall, revolver in his lap, and tried to stay awake. He failed. He woke to gray dawn light and the sound of Eliza crying. Not loud, just quiet, hitching sobs, trying to keep it together and failing. Colt moved to her side. "Hey." She turned her face away. "Don't." "Don't what?" "Don't look at me like that." "Like what?" "Like you pity me." "I don't pity you. I'm worried about you. Different thing." She wiped at her face with a shaking hand. "My leg's on fire." "I know. I can't feel my toes." "That was bad. We need to get you to a doctor." "Where?" "Town's the only place for miles and we can't exactly walk in there." "Durango. It's bigger. We could—" "Colt." She looked at him. Her eyes were sunken, her face gray. "I'm not making it to Durango. We both know that. You don't know that." "I do. And so do you." She took a shuddering breath. "You need to leave me here. Go to Durango yourself. Bring back help, the marshal, whoever. Show them the documents. Tell them what Harkin did." "I'm not leaving you." "Why not?" "I'm just slowing you down. You're my friend," Colt said. The word felt strange in his mouth. He hadn't had a friend in years. And friends don't leave each other. Eliza's face crumpled. "I don't deserve that." "Nobody deserves anything. We just get what we get." She was quiet for a moment, then, "My mother left me after my father died. She just gave up and left. I was so angry at her for that. Thought she was weak." "You don't think that anymore?" "I think she was in pain, and pain makes you do things that don't make sense." Eliza looked at her ruined leg. "I understand her better now. You're not your mother." "How do you know?" "Because you're still here." They sat in silence as the morning brightened. Outside, the storm had passed, leaving everything buried under fresh snow, beautiful and deadly. Around midday, Colt heard horses. He moved to the window, just a gap in the wall, really, and looked out. 4 riders picking their way through the drifts, looking for tracks, looking for them. "Company," he said quietly. Eliza struggled to sit up. "How many?" 4. "Harkin?" "Can't tell yet, too far." He watched them search. They were methodical, spreading out, checking every drift and depression. Eventually they'd find the mining camp. It was inevitable. "What do we do?" Eliza whispered. Colt checked his revolver. 5 rounds left. He'd lost the rifle in the fall. "We fight," he said. "With what? 5 bullets against 4 men? You got a better idea?" She didn't. The riders came closer. Colt could see them clearly now. 3 men he didn't recognize, and Billy Carson, his shoulder bandaged where Eliza had shot him. Billy looked angry. Looked like he wanted payback. "It's Carson," Colt said. Eliza's hand tightened on the rifle she still had. "Good. You can't even stand. Don't need to stand to shoot." The riders stopped 50 yards from the camp. They were talking, pointing. They'd spotted something, maybe the smoke from Colt's fire, maybe just the buildings themselves. Then Billy started riding forward alone. "What's he doing?" Eliza muttered. Colt watched him approach. Billy wasn't drawing his weapon, wasn't acting aggressive, just riding slow and easy, like a man without a care. He stopped 20 feet from the bunkhouse. "Maddox," he called. "I know you're in there." Colt said nothing. "I'm alone, no tricks, just want to talk." "He's lying," Eliza hissed. Probably, but Colt was curious. "Talk from there." "Rather do it face to face." "Not happening." Billy sighed. "Fine, have it your way." He stayed on his horse, hands visible. "Sheriff's offering a new deal. He'll let you both live if you give him the documents." "That's it?" "That's it. You sign over any claim to the land, hand over whatever papers you got, and you walk away. He don't care where you go or what you do. He just wants the land. And if we say no, then he brings the federal marshal down here like he said. maybe 50 men, and they dig you out of whatever hole you're hiding in. Billy shifted in his saddle. Look, I don't got a dog in this fight. I just work for wages. But I seen what happened yesterday, seen men die, seen that avalanche. This has gone too far. Your sheriff killed Eliza's father, Colt said. Billy was quiet for a moment, then, I don't know about that. She does. Girl's crazy. Everyone knows that. I'm not crazy, Eliza screamed. He murdered my father and stole our land. Billy looked uncomfortable. Even if that's true, and I ain't saying it is, what are you going to do about it? You're bleeding, broke, and outnumbered. You got no play here. We got the truth, Colt said. Truth don't mean shit without someone to tell it to, and you're running out of time. Colt looked at Eliza. She was pale, shaking, holding the rifle like it was the only thing keeping her upright. What do you want to do? He asked quietly. She met his eyes. I want to hurt him. I want to make him pay. I want... Her voice broke. I want my father back. Can't give you that. I know. She took a breath. But I can make sure everyone knows what he did, even if it kills me. It probably will. Then that's how it goes. Colt turned back to the window. Tell your sheriff we've got nothing to say to him. Billy shook his head. You're making a mistake. Not the first time. It'll be your last. Maybe, but it'll be on our terms. Billy stared at the bunkhouse for a long moment. Then he wheeled his horse around and rode back to the others. They talked. Colt saw Billy gesturing, the others responding. After a minute, they all turned and rode away. They're leaving? Eliza said, disbelieving. No, they're going back to get more men. How long do we have? Day. Maybe 2 if the weather's bad. Eliza slumped against the wall. Then it's over. Not yet, it's not. Colt, we can't. I need you to listen to me. He knelt beside her. I'm going to Durango. Tonight. I'll ride hard, get there by morning. Find the marshal or a judge or someone who'll listen. Show them the documents. Bring back help. You'll never make it. I'll make it. And what am I supposed to do? Just wait here? You stay alive, that's all. Just stay alive until I get back. Eliza laughed bitterly. With a broken leg and no supplies. Sure, easy. I'll leave you food, water, the rifle. You can hold this place for a couple days if you're smart. And if you don't come back? Colt didn't have an answer for that. She reached out and gripped his hand. Don't make promises you can't keep. I'm not promising anything except I'll try. That's not enough. It's all I got. They sat like that for a moment, hands clasped, 2 people who'd stumbled into each other's lives and somehow become something more than strangers. I never thanked you, Eliza said quietly. For what? For seeing me, for treating me like I mattered. You do matter. Not to most people. Then most people are blind. She smiled, sad and small, but real. When you get to Durango, if something happens to me, tell them I didn't run. Tell them I fought. I will. And Colt? Thank you for being my friend. He nodded, not trusting himself to speak. That night, after darkness fell, Colt prepared to leave. He left Eliza everything he could spare: food, water, ammunition, blankets. Built up the fire so it would last through the night. You sure about this? She asked as he checked his gun one last time. No, but I'm doing it anyway. Story of your life? Pretty much. He helped her sit up against the wall, rifle within easy reach. She looked small in the firelight, fragile, but her eyes were hard. If they come before you get back, she said, I'm not surrendering. I know. I'm going to take as many of them with me as I can. I know that too. Good. She held out her hand. Good luck, Colt Maddox. He shook it. Good luck, Eliza Boone. Then he walked out into the cold. The nearest place to steal a horse was back toward Silverton. Dangerous, but necessary. Colt moved through the darkness like a ghost, using every trick he'd learned in 31 years of hard living. It took him 3 hours to reach the outskirts of town. He found a stable on the east side. Small operation, just 4 horses. He picked the strongest-looking one, a bay mare with good legs. He was leading her out when a voice stopped him. Wouldn't do that if I were you. Colt spun, hand going to his gun. An old man stood in the stable doorway, lantern in hand. 60 years old if he was a day, with a face like weathered leather. "That's my horse," the old man said. "I'll bring her back." "Sure you will." The old man studied him. "You're the one who bought Blackpine Ridge." "That's right." "And you're running from Harkin's men." "Not running, going for help." The old man spat tobacco juice into the snow. "Help from where?" "Durango, federal marshal. That'll take time. Time that girl up in the mountains don't have." Colt tensed. "What do you know about that?" "I know Harkin's been talking, saying you two are outlaws, saying you killed 3 of his men, building a case to bring in federal help of his own." "That's a lie." "Of course it is, but lies work when you got power behind them." The old man set down the lantern. "I also know Samuel Boone. Worked with him for 10 years before he died. Good man, honest man." "You believe his daughter?" "I believe Harkin's a snake. I believe he'd kill a man for silver, and I believe that girl's been telling the truth all along." The old man walked to another stall and led out a second horse, a gray gelding. "You take this one, faster than the mare, stronger too." "I can't pay you." "Don't want payment. Just want you to do what's right." Colt stared at him. "Why help me?" "Because somebody should have helped that girl 3 years ago. Nobody did. Maybe it's too late now, but maybe it ain't." He handed Colt the reins. "There's a trail east of here, stays high, avoids the main road. You push hard, you can make Durango by dawn." "Thank you." "Don't thank me. Just bring back help, real help." Colt swung into the saddle. The horse shifted beneath him, eager. "One more thing," the old man said. "You see Eliza, you tell her Bill Garrett remembers her father. Tell her some of us never believed Harkin's lies." "I'll tell her." Colt rode out into the night. The trail was exactly where the old man said it would be, narrow and treacherous, hugging the mountainside. The horse was strong, but even so, Colt had to dismount and lead it through the worst sections. The night was clear, the stars bright enough to cast shadows, cold enough to freeze spit before it hit the ground. Colt pushed through it, ignoring the pain in his ribs, the ache in his shoulder. He thought about Eliza alone in that mining camp, wounded, terrified, brave. He thought about all the people who dismissed her, ignored her, treated her like she was nothing. And he thought about the look in her eyes when she'd said, "Thank you for seeing me." Nobody should have to thank someone for basic human decency. But the world was what it was. He rode faster. Dawn found him on the outskirts of Durango. The town was bigger than Silverton, a real settlement with brick buildings and paved streets, signs of civilization, signs of law. Colt rode straight to the marshal's office and tied his horse outside. The animal was lathered, exhausted. It had given everything it had. Inside, a deputy sat behind a desk, reading a newspaper. He looked up when Colt entered. "Help you?" "Need to see the marshal. It's urgent." "Marshal's not here. Won't be back till Monday." Today was Friday. 3 days. "Where is he?" "Denver, federal business." The deputy set down his paper. "What's this about?" Colt pulled out the documents Eliza had given him, the deeds, the letters, all of it. "There's a sheriff in Silverton named Harkin. He's killed a man and stolen land. I got proof." The deputy barely glanced at the papers. "You got accusations. Proof's something else." "These documents could be forged, could be real. I don't know, and I can't do nothing about it without the marshal." The deputy leaned back. "You want to file a complaint? Fill out this form. I'll pass it along when he gets back." "A woman's going to die in 3 days." "Then she better hope the marshal gets back early." Colt felt rage building in his chest. "You're not going to do anything." "Can't. No authority to act on this kind of thing. That's federal jurisdiction." "So I just wait? Or you take it to the territorial judge. His office is 2 blocks south, but he's in Santa Fe till next week." Colt wanted to grab the deputy and shake him. Instead, he gathered the documents and walked out. The sun was up now, warming the streets. People moved about their business, shopping, working, living, normal life, safe life. Colt stood in the middle of it all and felt completely lost. He'd ridden all night, left Eliza alone and injured. And for what? A deputy who didn't care and a marshal who wasn't here. There had to be another way. He spent the day asking questions, talking to lawyers, trying to find someone, anyone who could help. But every door led to the same answer: wait for the marshal, follow procedure, be patient. Patience would get Eliza killed. By nightfall, Colt was out of options. He sat in a saloon, nursing a whiskey he couldn't afford, trying to think. A man sat down beside him, late 50s, well-dressed, with intelligent eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. "You look troubled, friend." Colt didn't respond. "Name's Arthur Crane. I'm a reporter for the Durango Herald." The man signaled the bartender for a drink. "Heard you've been asking about federal marshals and corrupt sheriffs. That's the kind of story I like." Colt looked at him. "You can't help me." "Maybe not. But I can print the truth. And sometimes that's just as powerful as a badge." "She doesn't have time for newspaper articles." "Who doesn't?" Colt told him. "All of it. Samuel Boone's death, the stolen land, Harkin's corruption, Eliza's 3 years of survival, the fight on the ridge." Crane listened without interrupting. When Colt finished, the reporter sat quietly for a moment. "You got proof of any of this?" he finally asked. Colt showed him the documents. Crane examined them carefully. "These are real." "I know. And you say Harkin's planning to bring in federal help to finish you off?" "That's what his men said." Crane smiled. "Then we beat him to it." "How?" "I wire every newspaper between here and Denver. Tell them the story. Sheriff stealing land from a woman, killing her father, trying to silence her. By tomorrow morning, this is news. By tomorrow afternoon, it's scandal." Crane folded the documents carefully. "Can I keep these? Make copies? Will it help?" "It'll make sure that even if Harkin wins, everyone knows he's a thief. That's something. It wasn't enough, but it was more than Colt had 5 minutes ago." "All right," he said. "Do it." Crane stood. "Where's this woman now?" "Hiding, 3 miles outside Silverton. She's got a broken leg and maybe 2 days before infection kills her." "Then you better get back to her." "What about the story?" "I'll handle it. You handle keeping her alive." Crane paused. "One more thing. When this is over, when you've won or lost, I want the full story. Interviews, details, everything. Deal? If we're alive to tell it." "That's the spirit." Colt rode out an hour later on a fresh horse, supplied by Crane. The ride back was faster. He knew the trail now, knew the dangers. But it still took all night. He reached the mining camp just after dawn. The buildings looked the same. No sign of disturbance. He dismounted and ran inside. Eliza was exactly where he'd left her, still breathing, still alive. Her eyes opened when he knelt beside her. "You came back," she whispered. "Told you I would." "Did you find help?" "Better. I found a witness." He told her about Crane, about the newspapers, about the story spreading across the territory. Eliza listened, hope and disbelief warring on her face. "You think it'll work?" she asked. "I think it's the best chance we've got." She reached for his hand. "Then let's see it through." Outside in the distance, Colt heard horses. Harkin was coming. The hoofbeats grew louder. Colt moved to the window and counted 8 riders, maybe more behind them. Harkin was in the lead, his face set like stone. They weren't coming to talk this time. "How many rounds you got?" Colt asked. Eliza checked her rifle. 12. "I've got 5. He looked at her. "Not enough." "Never is." They took positions on opposite sides of the room, creating crossfire angles. Eliza propped herself against the wall, rifle steady despite the pain etched in her face. Colt crouched by the window, revolver ready. The riders stopped 100 yards out. Too far for accurate pistol work. Close enough for rifles. Harkin dismounted and walked forward alone, hands visible. "Maddox, last chance. Come out peaceful and we'll talk." Colt didn't answer. Let him wonder. "I know you went to Durango," Harkin shouted. "Know you talked to people. Don't matter. You got no proof of anything." Actually, they did. But Harkin didn't know about the documents yet. Didn't know about Crane and the newspapers. That ignorance was the only edge they had. "We're done talking," Colt yelled back. "Then you're done living." Harkin turned and gestured to his men. They didn't charge. Instead, they spread out in a wide semicircle, taking positions behind cover. Professional, patient. "They're going to wait us out," Eliza said quietly. "Probably. We don't have food or water for a siege." "I know." "So what's the plan?" Colt looked at her. "We make them think we've got more than we do. Make them scared to come in." "How?" "We make them pay for every inch." The first shot came from the left flank, a rifle round that punched through the wall and buried itself in the far timbers. A ranging shot, testing their response. Colt fired back, Not at the shooter, but at a rock near where he'd hidden. The bullet sparked off stone. A second later, the man behind the rock shifted position, looking for better cover. "They're nervous," Eliza observed. "Good, keep them that way." The siege settled into an ugly rhythm. Harkin's men would fire, testing defenses, trying to draw return fire and count how many guns were inside. Colt and Eliza responded sparingly, never establishing a pattern, always moving between positions. An hour passed, then 2. The sun climbed higher, warming the air but doing nothing for the cold inside the bunkhouse. Eliza's face had gone pale, her breathing shallow. The leg was getting worse. "You need water," Colt said. "I'm fine." "You're not fine. You're dying slow." "Still dying faster than they're attacking?" She managed a weak smile. "At least I'm consistent." Around midday, one of Harkin's men got brave. He broke from cover and ran toward the bunkhouse in a zigzag pattern, trying to get close enough for a clean shot. Eliza tracked him calmly and fired. The man went down hard, clutching his thigh. His companions dragged him back behind a boulder. Colt could hear screaming. "Nice shot," he said. "Wasn't aiming for his leg. Still counts?" The attack broke off after that. Harkin's men retreated to longer range, clearly rethinking their strategy. Colt watched them through the gaps in the walls, saw them arguing among themselves. "They're scared," Eliza said. "They should be. We've only got 8 rounds left." They don't know that. But they'd figure it out eventually, and when they did, the calculus would change. Scared men were cautious, desperate men were dangerous, but men who realized their enemy was nearly empty, those men got bold. Colt needed to change the equation before that happened. "I'm going out there," he said. Eliza's head snapped toward him. "What?" "I'm going to walk out there and talk to Harkin, face to face." "That's insane." "Probably, but if I can keep him talking long enough, maybe help arrives." "What help? The marshal's not coming. Nobody's coming." "Crane's story hits the papers this afternoon. People read it. They'll start asking questions. Harkin knows that. He's smart enough to know his window's closing." "So you're betting he'll negotiate?" "I'm betting he'll hesitate, and hesitation buys time." Eliza stared at him. "And if you're wrong? If he just shoots you the second you step outside? Then you've still got 8 rounds and a chance to hold out till dark." "That's a terrible plan." "You got a better one?" She didn't. Colt stood up, brushing snow from his pants. His ribs screamed at the movement, but he ignored them. He checked his revolver, 5 rounds, and holstered it. "Wait," Eliza said. He turned. She was struggling to her feet, using the rifle as a crutch. Her face was twisted with pain, but her eyes were clear. "If you're going out there, I'm going with you. You can barely stand. Don't matter. This is my fight more than yours." She took a shaking step forward. "I'm the one they want. I'm the one they've been trying to erase, so I'm the one who stands up and says no." "Eliza, I spent 3 years hiding, 3 years being afraid, 3 years letting them think I didn't matter." Her voice broke. "I'm done with that. If I'm going to die today, I'm dying on my feet, looking them in the eye." Colt wanted to argue, but he saw the determination in her face and knew it would be pointless. "All right," he said. "Together then." He helped her to the door. Every step was agony for her, but she didn't complain, just gritted her teeth and kept moving. At the door, she paused. "When we get out there, thank you for everything. We're not dead yet." "No, but just in case." Colt nodded. Then he pushed the door open and they stepped out into the light. The effect was immediate. Harkin's men stopped moving, stopped shooting, just stared as Colt and a limping Eliza walked slowly toward them. Harkin himself stepped out from behind cover, gun drawn but not aimed. His face registered shock, then calculation, then something that might have been grudging respect. "Well," he said. "Didn't expect this." They stopped 30 feet away. Close enough to talk, far enough to react if things went bad. "We're done hiding," Colt said. "I can see that." Harkin's eyes shifted to Eliza. "You look like hell, girl." "You look worse," she said. A couple of Harkin's men laughed. The sheriff's face darkened. "You got something to say to me?" he asked. "Yeah." Eliza straightened, leaning less on Colt. "You killed my father. You stole my land. You've been trying to erase me for 3 years. But I'm still here, and I'm not going anywhere. That right? That's right. Harkin smiled, cold and mirthless. You got guts, I'll give you that. More than I thought. But guts don't change facts. You're outnumbered, outgunned, and out of time. Maybe, Colt said. But we're not out of truth. Truth? Harkin laughed. Truth is whatever people believe, and I've spent 3 years making people believe you're crazy. He pointed at Eliza. Look at you. Who's going to believe you over me? Everyone who reads the Durango Herald this afternoon, Colt said. Harkin's smile faltered. What? We talked to a reporter, Arthur Crane, gave him copies of all the documents, deeds, letters, everything. He's printing the story today. By tonight, every newspaper in the territory will know what you did. The color drained from Harkin's face. You're bluffing. Am I? Colt pulled a piece of paper from his pocket, a note Crane had given him as proof. Read it yourself. He tossed it forward. One of Harkin's men picked it up and handed it to the sheriff. Harkin read it. His jaw tightened. When he looked up, his eyes were murder. Doesn't matter, he said, but his voice had lost its certainty. People forget. Newspapers move on. This'll blow over. Will it? Eliza asked. Or will it follow you? Every town you go to, every job you try to get, people will know. They'll know you're a killer and a thief. You can't prove I killed anyone. I can prove you stole land. I can prove you forged documents. And when people start digging, and they will dig, what else are they going to find? Harkin's hand tightened on his gun. Around him, his men were shifting nervously. Some of them were hired guns who didn't care about guilt or innocence, but others were locals, men with families and reputations to protect. Men who were starting to realize they'd backed the wrong horse. Sheriff, one of them said quietly, maybe we should— Shut up, Harkin snapped. But if what they're saying is true— I said shut up. The man fell silent, but the doubt was spreading. Colt could see it in their faces. They'd come here expecting a simple fight against outlaws. Now they were accessories to murder and theft, and a newspaper was about to tell the world. Harkin seemed to sense it too. His authority was crumbling. All right, he said. Here's what's going to happen. You give me those documents, the originals, and I'll let you walk away. Both of you. No more fighting, no more trouble. The originals are already in Durango, Colt lied. They were actually hidden in his coat. Safe with the reporter. Harkin's face went red. Then there's nothing to negotiate. Sure there is. You can walk away. Right now. Leave the land to Eliza, right out of Silverton, and never come back. We'll tell Crane the story was a mistake. We'll make it go away. Like hell. Or you can keep fighting. Maybe you win. Maybe you kill us both. But that story still prints, and then you're not just a thief, you're a murderer everyone knows about. How long you think it takes before a real marshal comes looking? Harkin stared at them. The rage in his eyes was terrifying, but beneath it Colt saw something else. Fear. The man was realizing he'd lost. Not the battle. The war. You think you're smart, Harkin said quietly. Think you've beaten me. But you don't know how this works. I've got friends, powerful friends. They'll bury this story, bury you. Maybe, Eliza said, but some dirt doesn't stay buried. For a long moment, nobody moved. The tension was so thick Colt could taste it. Then from behind Harkin, a voice called out, Sheriff, riders coming. Everyone turned. From the direction of Durango, a group of riders approached. At least a dozen, moving fast. As they got closer, Colt saw the lead rider wore a marshal's badge, the actual federal marshal. Crane must have wired him directly, must have convinced him to come immediately. Harkin saw it too. His face went from red to white. No, he whispered. The marshal and his men rode up and dismounted. The marshal was a tall man with gray hair and a face that had seen everything twice. He looked at Harkin, then at Colt and Eliza, then back at Harkin. Sheriff Dale Harkin? He asked. That's right. I'm Marshal William Hayes. I've got some questions about land claims in your jurisdiction. I don't know what you've heard, but I've heard plenty. Read an interesting article on my way here. Real interesting. Hayes pulled out a newspaper. Says you've been stealing land from a woman named Eliza Boone. Says you might have killed her father to do it. That's a lie. Hayes looked at Eliza. You Eliza Boone? Yes, sir. You got proof of these claims? Colt stepped forward and handed over the documents, the real ones. Hayes examined them carefully. These look legitimate, he said after a moment. They are, Eliza said. My father filed those deeds 15 years ago, worked that land until he died. Sheriff Harkin stole it 3 years ago. That's not what happened, Harkin protested. She's crazy. Everyone in Silverton knows she's crazy. Then we'll ask everyone in Silverton, Hayes said calmly. Under oath, in a court of law. He gestured to his deputies. Take the sheriff into custody. What? Harkin backed up. You can't. I'm a lawman. You were a lawman. Now you're under arrest for fraud and possibly murder. We'll let a judge sort out which. Harkin's hand dropped to his gun. Don't, Hayes said quietly. His own hand rested on his holster. Don't make this worse than it already is. For a second, Colt thought Harkin would draw. Thought this would end in blood after all. But then Harkin's shoulders sagged. The fight went out of him. He let the deputies take his gun, put him in irons. As they led him away, he looked back at Eliza. This isn't over. Yeah, she said. It is. They took him to a horse and rode away. Just like that. The man who'd terrorized her for 3 years, reduced to a prisoner in chains. Eliza swayed. Colt caught her before she fell. I've got you, he said. Is it really over? She whispered. It's really over. She started crying then, deep, wrenching sobs that shook her whole body. 3 years of fear and anger and pain pouring out all at once. Colt held her while she broke apart, and then while she slowly pieced herself back together. Marshal Hayes approached. We need to get her to a doctor. That leg looks bad. Durango's got a hospital, one of the deputies said. They fashioned a stretcher from branches and blankets. Loaded Eliza onto a horse, gentle as they could. She was fading in and out of consciousness now, the adrenaline wearing off, the pain and exhaustion taking over. She going to make it? Colt asked the marshal. If we hurry. They rode hard. Colt stayed beside Eliza the whole way, keeping her steady, keeping her awake. Stay with me, he kept saying. Just a little longer. Tired, she mumbled. I know, but you can't sleep yet. Why not? Because you won. You finally won. And you should be awake to see it. She smiled faintly. We won. Not just me. Yeah, we won. The Durango hospital was small but clean. The doctor was an older woman with capable hands who took one look at Eliza's leg and started shouting orders to nurses. They took her into surgery immediately. Colt waited outside, pacing, trying not to think about infection or amputation or all the things that could still go wrong. Arthur Crane showed up an hour later, notebook in hand. Heard you made it back, he said. The girl? In surgery. She going to be all right? Don't know yet. Crane sat down beside him. The story's everywhere. 3 papers picked it up already. By tomorrow, it'll be in every territory between here and California. Good. Harkin's finished. Even if he beats the charges, and he won't, his reputation's destroyed. Nobody'll hire him. Nobody'll trust him. Good, Colt said again. And the land? Goes back to Eliza, soon as a judge reviews the documents. Crane made notes. This is quite a story. Woman fights corrupt sheriff, nearly dies defending her family's land, gets vindicated in the end. People love this stuff. It's not a story. It's her life. Same thing in my business. Crane looked at him. What about you? What's next? Colt hadn't thought that far ahead. For weeks, maybe months, his entire focus had been survival. Now that the threat was gone, he didn't know what to do with himself. Guess I'll see what Eliza wants, he said. You 2 partners now? Something like that. The doctor emerged 3 hours later, wiping blood from her hands. Colt stood immediately. She's alive, the doctor said. We saved the leg. Barely. She'll need months to heal, maybe a year before she walks normal. But she'll walk. Relief flooded through Colt. Can I see her? She's sleeping, but yes. Eliza looked small in the hospital bed, her face pale against white sheets, but she was breathing steady, and that was enough. Colt sat beside her and waited. She woke as the sun was setting, casting orange light through the window. Her eyes found him immediately. Hey, she said, her voice rough. Hey yourself. I still got my leg? You still got your leg? Good. Be ashamed to survive all that and end up a cripple. You survived. That's what matters. Eliza was quiet for a moment. Then, what happens now? Now you heal. Then we go back to Blackpine Ridge and rebuild the cabin. We? If you want. I bought that land fair and square, but I figure we can share it. Partners. She smiled. You really want to stay? After everything? Where else would I go? Anywhere. You're free now. No more fighting, no more hiding. You could go anywhere. So could you. This is my home. Always has been. Yeah, Colt said. Mine too, I think. Eliza reached out and took his hand. Thank you for everything, for believing me when nobody else did, for staying when you could have run, for being my friend. Thank you for letting me be your friend. They sat like that as the sun set, two people who'd fought their way through hell and somehow come out the other side. The trial took place 3 weeks later in Durango. The courtroom was packed. News of the story had spread far and wide, and people came from all over to see the woman who'd stood up to corruption and won. Eliza testified from a wheelchair, her legs still in splints. She told the whole story, her father's death, Harkin's theft, the 3 years of hiding and surviving. She spoke clearly, without embellishment, just laying out the facts. The defense tried to paint her as unstable, as a liar, as someone whose word couldn't be trusted. But the documents were ironclad, and witness after witness, including Bill Garrett, the old man who'd helped Colt, testified to Harkin's corruption. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. Guilty on all counts. Harkin was sentenced to 20 years in territorial prison. His property was seized to pay restitution. His name was struck from the rolls of law enforcement. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed Eliza. She handled them with surprising grace, answering questions, telling her story, making sure people understood what had happened. What's next for you? One reporter asked. I'm going home, she said simply. Back to my land, back to the place my father built, and I'm going to live there. Really live, not just survive. And Mr. Maddox? Are you two together? Eliza glanced at Colt, who stood nearby. We're partners. Friends. He saved my life. I reckon I owe him half of everything. Actually, Colt said, stepping forward, the land's hers. I'm just helping rebuild. More questions, more answers. Eventually, they managed to escape and ride back towards Silverton. The town was different now. People who'd ignored Eliza for 3 years suddenly wanted to talk to her, to apologize, to explain they'd never really believed Harkin's lies. She listened politely, but didn't forget. Didn't forgive everyone. Some things couldn't be forgiven. They rode up to Blackpine Ridge on a clear spring day. The snow was melting, revealing the land beneath, rocky, difficult, beautiful. The cabin was still standing, though it bore scars from the siege, bullet holes in the walls, burn marks from torches that never quite caught. It's a mess, Eliza said. We'll fix it. And they did. Over the next months, they rebuilt. Not just the cabin, but everything around it. They cleared land for a garden, repaired the fences, fixed the roof. Slowly, the place transformed from a symbol of survival into something else. A home. Eliza's leg healed slowly. She walked with a limp she'd probably have for the rest of her life. But she walked. And eventually, she could ride again. Could work alongside Colt without needing help. They found silver in the creek. Not much, but enough to supplement their income. Enough to buy supplies, hire occasional help, build something sustainable. People came sometimes. Reporters wanting follow-up stories. Lawyers handling the final details of the land transfer. Curious townspeople who'd heard the tale and wanted to see the place for themselves. Eliza met them all with quiet dignity. She'd learned something important in those years of hiding. She didn't need anyone's approval to exist, didn't need anyone's permission to matter. She just was. And that was enough. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sun set over the mountains, Eliza spoke quietly. Do you ever regret it? Staying here? You could have taken that $500 and been halfway to California by now. Colt thought about it. No. Why not? Because this is the first place I've ever felt like I belonged. Not because I was useful or dangerous or needed, just because I chose to be here. That's a good reason. What about you? Ever wish you'd just taken Harkin's offer and left? Eliza laughed. Every single day. But then I remember how it felt to stand up to him, to watch him taken away in chains, and I think that was worth everything. Even almost dying? Even that. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the last light fade from the sky. Some stories don't have neat endings. Some fights don't end with everyone reconciled and forgiven. Sometimes the people who hurt you never apologize. Sometimes the world never fully acknowledges what was done to you. But sometimes you win anyway. Not because justice is perfect or the system works, but because you refuse to disappear. Because you stand your ground and make people see you, hear you, acknowledge that you exist. Eliza Boone had spent her whole life being told she didn't matter. Too heavy. Too plain. Too poor. Too female. Too much and not enough, all at the same time. But she'd proven them all wrong, not by becoming smaller or quieter or more acceptable, by becoming exactly who she was and refusing to apologize for it. And Colt Maddox, a drifter who'd spent 31 years belonging nowhere, had found a place worth defending, a person worth fighting for, a reason to stop running. The cabin on Blackpine Ridge still stands today. You can see it if you ride up the mountain trail, past the tree line where the air gets thin and cold. The land around it is worked now, gardens and fences and signs of human habitation. Sometimes people visit, history students, tourists, people who've heard the story and want to see where it happened. They find a weathered plaque near the cabin door. It reads, "Here lived Eliza Boone and Colt Maddox, two people who refused to be erased." Simple words, but they captured something important, something that resonated with everyone who read them. Because at the end of the day, that's all any of us want. To be seen, to be heard, to matter. And sometimes, against all odds, we get exactly that. Not because the world is fair or just, but because we fight for it. Because we refuse to disappear quietly into the dark. Because we stand. Eliza and Colt lived on that ridge for the rest of their lives. They never married, didn't need the paperwork to know they were family. They worked the land, found enough silver to live comfortably, and spent their evenings on that porch watching sunsets. When Eliza died at 73, Colt buried her next to her parents on the ridge. He lived another 5 years after that, tending the land, keeping her memory alive. Before he died, he added one more line to the plaque. They mattered. And they did. Not because they were perfect or because their story had a fairy tale ending, but because they chose to exist loudly in a world that wanted them silent. That choice, that simple, stubborn refusal to disappear, changed everything. It always does.